remember the night I almost gave up. I was sitting on the floor of my bedroom, clutching a note I had written. The kind of note no one should ever have to write. Tears blurred my eyes and I thought, maybe this is the end. Maybe my life has no more meaning. But little did I know, my story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. And before I dive into this emotional journey, I just want to say, thank you to all my wonderful subscribers. Your support, your encouragement, and your willingness to listen to real stories of faith keep me going. If you're new here, welcome. I hope this story touches your heart and helps you see that no matter how broken life feels, Jehovah never leaves us. People say that everyone has a breaking point. For me, it came on a cold evening in late November. I had always been the strong one, the dependable mother, the faithful wife, the friend who always had a smile on her face. People thought I was blessed. They saw the polished version of me in public. The one who dressed well, smiled politely, and nodded as though life was perfectly in order. But behind closed doors, my soul was screaming. My marriage was crumbling piece by piece, though outsiders thought we were picture perfect. My children, innocent and trusting, didn't know that most nights their parents barely spoke. And me? I was exhausted from pretending, from holding everything together, from praying prayers that seemed to bounce off the ceiling. That November night I sat in silence, holding a note I had written. A note that said goodbye. A note that admitted I had nothing left inside me to fight with. I looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room, and I didn't even recognize the woman staring back. She looked hollow. She looked defeated. But here's the strange thing. Even in that lowest moment, something deep inside whispered, "This is not the end. There's more to your story." I ignored it at first. I thought it was just my imagination trying to comfort me. But that whisper wouldn't leave, and eventually it grew louder. That night, instead of leaving forever, I fell to my knees. My tears soaked the carpet as I cried, "Jehovah, if you are still listening, if you still care, please show me that my life is not over." It was the most raw, desperate prayer I had ever prayed. And Jehovah answered, not with a thunderbolt, not with a miracle that instantly changed my circumstances, but with something better. He gave me the strength to wake up the next morning. Sometimes survival itself is the first step toward redemption. The next day I had to face my family, my reality, and my own brokenness. My husband, Mark, barely noticed how puffy my eyes were from crying all night. He was lost in his own struggles, his own silence. I used to resent him for that silence, but now I realized he too was broken in ways I didn't fully understand. My kids, though, they noticed. My daughter hugged me longer than usual. My son, only 8, asked, "Mommy, are you sad?" That simple question pierced my heart. Children have a way of seeing the truth, even when we try to hide it. "Yes, baby," I whispered. "But I'm going to be okay." And in saying those words, I made a decision. Maybe I wasn't okay yet, but I wanted to be. That was the beginning of my climb out of the pit. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. I poured my pain onto those pages, but also my prayers. I wrote things I was too scared to say out loud, confessions of my fear, my doubts, and even my anger at Jehovah. But as I wrote, something amazing happened. Instead of being consumed by the darkness, I started seeing tiny flickers of light. Verses I had once read came back to me, like little treasures hidden in my memory. Jehovah is close to the brokenhearted. Throw your burden on Jehovah, and he will sustain you. Each verse was like a lifeline. I began to realize, Jehovah hadn't left me. I had stopped reaching for him. And even then he was still there, waiting, patient, steady, like a father watching his child finally turn back toward him. As the weeks passed, I decided to open up to one trusted friend from the congregation, Sister Angela. She was kind, humble, and always made people feel safe. When I finally told her what I had been going through, the note, the despair, the loneliness, she didn't judge me. Instead, she simply held my hand and said, "You are still here because Jehovah isn't finished with you yet." Those words burned into my heart. It was the first time I truly believed the whisper I had heard that night. Your story is not over. That marked the beginning of my journey back to life, back to faith, back to hope. But I didn't know then just how much harder the road was going to get. Because healing doesn't come in a straight line. Some days I felt strong and full of faith. Other days I fell apart all over again. I still wrestled with resentment toward Mark. I still had moments where I doubted my worth, my purpose, my ability to be used by Jehovah. But through it all, I kept remembering, if Jehovah had kept me alive when I wanted to give up, he must have a reason. And that reason was something I was only beginning to discover. They say marriage is built on trust. But what happens when trust has faded? When silence becomes the loudest thing between two people? Mark and I had been married for nearly 15 years, and yet some nights, lying in the same bed, I felt like we were strangers sharing a roof. His back always turned to me, his breathing steady but far away, as though even in sleep he kept his distance. I used to wonder, does he even see me anymore? The truth was, he probably asked the same thing about me. After that night when despair almost consumed me, I was determined to survive, to find purpose again. But surviving does not mean everything suddenly feels fixed. Survival is messy. Some days I woke up with hope. Other days, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I had the strength to keep pretending everything was fine. Mark noticed something was changing in me. He would look at me longer, his eyes cautious, as though he wanted to ask what was happening in my heart but did not know how. Our conversations were short, clipped, like two people handing over receipts instead of love. But beneath the silence, there were cracks widening. One evening after dinner, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table long after the kids had gone upstairs. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Mark was scrolling through his phone, his face lit by the blue glow of the screen. I wanted to scream. Not because of what he was doing, but because of what he wasn't doing. He wasn't looking at me. He wasn't asking me how I was. He wasn't fighting for me. And yet, part of me realized, I wasn't fighting either. That night, after he went upstairs, I whispered a prayer. Jehovah, teach me how to love again. Because right now, all I feel is empty. A week later, Sister Angela invited me to a small gathering at her home. It wasn't a big event, just tea, warm bread, and heartfelt conversation with a few sisters. I almost didn't go. My mind told me, stay home. No one wants to hear your story. But something nudged me forward. Maybe Jehovah himself knew I needed that night. When I walked into her living room, filled with gentle laughter and women who greeted me with open arms, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Belonging. That night, as the sisters shared their own struggles, I realized I wasn't alone. One sister talked about losing her job. Another admitted she battled depression for years. A third quietly confessed her marriage wasn't what she thought it would be. It hit me. We were all carrying silent battles. And yet, together we felt stronger. When I returned home, Mark was in the living room, still awake. He looked at me curiously and asked, "Where were you?" His tone wasn't harsh, just unfamiliar. "I was with the sisters," I replied, setting my bag down. There was a pause. For the first time in weeks, he set down his phone. "You look different." Different. The word echoed in my heart. I wasn't sure if it was good or bad, but I knew he was right. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe the cracks between us weren't unfixable. Still, rebuilding trust and love is not a quick fix. There were days when I resented him for not noticing sooner, for not holding me when I was falling apart. There were nights when his silence felt like a knife. But there were also tiny moments of hope, like when he made coffee for me before leaving for work, or when he hugged the kids tighter at bedtime, as though reminding himself of the family we had built. I began to see that just as I was struggling quietly, so was he. His silence wasn't always rejection, it was his way of dealing with the weight on his shoulders. And in that realization I saw something else. If I wanted Jehovah to heal me, maybe I had to allow him to heal us. One Sunday during the meeting, the elder shared a scripture that felt written just for me. With Jehovah, nothing will be impossible. I wrote it down in my notebook, underlining it 3 times. Nothing. Not even a broken marriage. Not even a heart that had once given up. That week I tried something new. Instead of waiting for Mark to speak first, I asked him simple questions. How was your day? What is on your mind? At first, his answers were short, but then little by little, he began to open up. One night, he told me about the stress at work, the fear of losing his job, the guilt of feeling like he was failing me and the kids. Tears filled my eyes as I realized I wasn't the only one who felt unseen. That conversation didn't fix everything, but it was a start. A fragile, trembling start. It reminded me of planting a seed. You bury it in dark soil, water it and wait. For days, nothing seems to happen. But underneath, life is stirring. Roots are growing. That was us. We were still in the dark soil, but maybe, just maybe, something new was beginning. Still, my heart wrestled with doubt. Could we really find our way back? Could I truly forgive the silence, the distance, the years of feeling invisible? I didn't have the answers, but I clung to what I did know. Jehovah had kept me alive for a reason, and that reason surely wasn't just to give up again. So I prayed. Every night. Sometimes with words. Sometimes only with tears. And in those prayers, I found something I thought I had lost completely. Peace. Not the peace of everything being perfect, but the peace of knowing Jehovah was still with me, even in the imperfections. And that peace gave me the strength to keep going. They say the truth always comes out, no matter how well it is hidden. I never thought that would be the case in my marriage, but one night proved me wrong. It was a rainy Thursday evening. The kids were upstairs working on homework, the sound of pencils scratching faintly above me. Mark had left his jacket draped over the back of the chair, and as I was tidying the living room, his phone buzzed. I froze. It wasn't unusual for his phone to go off, but this time it wasn't the usual work notification. It was a message preview. A name I did not recognize, and beneath it, words that made my blood run cold. I cannot stop thinking about last night. The room spun. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone, torn between the urge to look and the fear of confirming my worst nightmare. I opened the message, and then another, and another. Conversations that stretched back weeks. Affectionate words. Secret meetings. An intimacy that no wife should ever discover from a glowing screen. I dropped the phone on the couch as though it burned me. My knees gave out and I collapsed onto the floor, clutching my chest as though I could hold my heart together with my hands. The tears came hard, hot, and uncontrollable. After everything, Jehovah, why now? Why this? Why him? Mark walked in minutes later, shaking rain from his hair, and immediately noticed my face. His eyes darted to the phone on the couch. He froze. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain hammering against the windows. Finally I choked out, "How long?" His lips parted, but no words came. His silence was worse than any confession. It was the silence of guilt. I thought I would scream. I thought I would throw things, rage, demand answers. But instead I sat there on the floor, broken, whispering through sobs. "You were supposed to protect me. You were supposed to love me." Mark knelt in front of me, his face pale, eyes wet. "I failed you. I failed God. I failed our family." His voice cracked, and for the first time in years, I saw raw, unfiltered emotion in his eyes. But it did not erase the betrayal. The weight of it was crushing. My world, already fragile, shattered like glass underfoot. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions for the children, but inside I felt numb. I could not look at him without seeing the words on that phone screen. At night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every message, every lie, every moment I thought he was working late when he was somewhere else. Bitterness wrapped itself around my heart like chains. And yet, so did Jehovah's voice. Every time I considered leaving, every time I thought of revenge, scriptures would rise in my mind. Throw your burden on Jehovah, and he will sustain you. Love never fails. But how could love survive this? One evening I sat alone in the car outside the Kingdom Hall, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I did not want to walk inside. I did not want people to see me broken. But I went in anyway. During the closing prayer, the brother prayed for those who are struggling in silence, who feel unseen and betrayed, but who are still holding on to Jehovah's hand. I broke down right there, tears running down my cheeks. Jehovah saw me. Even when I felt invisible, he saw me. The next day, Mark came to me with red eyes and a trembling voice. "I ended it," he said. "I told her it is over. I told her I will not throw away my family for sin. But I know words are not enough. I want to earn back your trust, if you will let me." I wanted to hate him. I wanted to push him away. But looking at him, I saw not just the man who betrayed me, but the man who was lost, the man who needed forgiveness just as much as I did. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. Does not mean excusing. It means releasing the poison before it destroys you. And so, trembling, I said, if we do this, it will not be easy. I need truth. I need honesty. I need you to fight for this family. Mark nodded, tears spilling down his face. With Jehovah's help, I will. It has been months since that night. Healing is not linear. Some days the memories sting. Some nights I still wake up with tears. But we pray together now. We study together. For the first time in years, we are walking toward Jehovah as one flesh instead of strangers. I learned something I never wanted to learn. Betrayal can break you, but Jehovah can rebuild you stronger than before. My story was not over when I found that phone. It was not over when my heart shattered. In fact, it was just beginning. Because the beginning was not built on illusions or silence. It was built on truth, on forgiveness, and on Jehovah's hand guiding us through the storm.
DJ Tunes,